You can hear me there, Tommy, yeah?
Yeah, perfect, Eamon.
Great stuff. Okay, so guys, we'll get going. So, look, good evening to you all. My name is Ian Fitzgerald, and I'm the Kerry GAA Games Development Administrator for MTU Kerry. I'm delighted to welcome you all on here tonight to our second webinar of Season 2 of our Kerry Coaching and Games webinar series. Tonight, we're delighted to be joined by Kerry Minor Football Manager James Costello, who will speak to you about a games-based approach to training. James, who is from Glenerville, played senior football for 15 years with his local club, St. Pat's Glenerville, as well as St. Brendan's district team. He is the holder of an All-Ireland Junior medal, which he won playing for Kerry in 2006. From a coaching point of view, James has coached at all age groups at club level, all the way up to the St. Pat's senior team. James has coached the St. Brendan's under-21 team to county championship glory, as well as coaching the St. Brendan's senior team in the senior county championship. James has been involved with the Kerry GAA development squads for a number of years now, and has coached at under 14, under 15, and 3 years at under 16 before moving into his current role. At the moment, James is actually double jobbing as he combines the St. Pat's under 9 team with the Kerry minors. He's a huge interest in coaching and admits that he gets a lot of his ideas from his time spent in other organisations and sports. Before I pass you over to James, can I remind you all to please leave your cameras and microphones off at all times. We will have a Q&A after the presentation, and this will be hosted by Kerry GAA GDA for West Kerry, Tomás Murahurty. If you do have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. Thank you and enjoy the presentation. I'll pass you over to James now.
Thanks, Eamon. You can hear me okay there, Eamon, yeah?
Yeah, perfect, James.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much. I'd like to welcome you all. I'm delighted to be that I was asked to give this presentation. Got a lot back over the years from Kerry GAA, especially with development squad. So delighted to try and pass back a few small bits of knowledge or whatever that I might have. I suppose we're in our third year as a management team with the Kerry Minors. We've only completed 1 year, so we've one bunch of lads hopefully preparing for an All-Ireland semi-final in a couple of weeks, or when we get back on the field, and we're starting with a new bunch, the 2021 Minors as well. So looking forward to it, all at different stages, and I suppose some of the stuff we'll touch on, you know, more advanced games for the lads we've been with for the year, and trying to embed principles in the newer lads that are coming through. What I'd say maybe all I'm trying to do really here is stimulate your thinking a small bit. I always say with all these coaching things that if you can get 2 or 3 good relevant points out of them, you'll be doing well. There'll be plenty here that you don't like. And I think it's important as well as a coach, you find out what you don't like and what won't work for you or what you don't agree with. It helps to formulate your thinking a bit more. I'll just share my screen here now. Okay. So what I kind of hope we'd get out of this evening is we just have a quick look at what is a games-based approach. A lot of these coaching webinars tend to have quotes from Roman gods and get very scientific. So we leave all that behind us, and we won't get too scientific. I want it to be very practical and hands-on, and things you can bring back to your clubs and your own teams. We look at what it is, how you can use it effectively. I'd spend a lot of time on practical examples, so things that you can do, and we kind of do it more general, I suppose, general principles, general ways of you using games-based coaching, and then, you know, we'd have a few good tips on how you can maximize the impact of a games-based approach in your team. So what you can do to really get the most out of it. And where I'd like to spend a lot of time, if possible, is in questions and answers. So as Eamon said, if you have any questions as you're going along, stick them in the chat box. I think, you know, hopefully if I don't have the answer, I'll see it, but we can certainly get a bit of discussion going on that. And I'd like to spend a lot of time there. Hoping to get it all tied up. 45 minutes would be a target, and get you back. I've a few fellas told me they want to be off for the Man United game. Now, we shouldn't be saying that in a GAA context. The Man United are hard to watch, but 45 minutes is the target. So I suppose the first thing is, you know, this is straight off the GAA manual. What is a games-based approach? But it does work. So the concept of a games-based approach really is you play a game, so you play some type of a game. Now, in most cases, in my head, a game is a condition game of some description. We'll talk about that in a sec. And you freeze the game then when you see something that's gone wrong. So, for example, if a guy shoots from the corner flag, and you fix it, you talk to him about it, the odds of scoring from here aren't as good or whatever, and then you fuel the will and you tell him he's doing great, and just to bear that in mind, and then play the game again. So you're coaching through the game really, rather than setting up a whole lot of drills and closed skills. So, I mean, there's numerous benefits of a games-based approach, and I'll just run through them quickly here. Probably one of the key ones is a fitness point of view. So, you can get lads working very hard in games without even knowing it. So, most senior clubs and elite level, they'll talk about the RP, which is the rate of perceived exertion, which is how hard is a player working and how much ground is he covering. And now we're talking about how much high speed running they're doing is one of the key metrics. So by playing, short-sided games, so at the start of the year, we would tend to do a lot of 4-side games in maybe a 40 by 60 pitch. And the players are getting loads of touches of the ball. They're covering a huge amount of ground. The average minor GAA player would be aiming for about 120 meters a minute. And by altering the size of the pitch and changing it, you can increase that and get them working a lot more, or decrease it. So they're doing a lot of fitness work without knowing it, and it keeps them fresh rather than putting them in my day laps of the field or even mass runs, which are very common now. That by getting the fitness work through games, it's absolutely fantastic. My head, the single biggest benefit of a games-based approach is in it is all the decisions you have to make in games. I think it's absolutely crucial, and it's kind of decisions people are making without even knowing it. I mean, the ball in a football match is in play for 30-35 minutes. The average player is touching the ball 20-25 times a good player. So there's a huge amount of time you don't have the ball. So it's decisions on where you need to be when you don't have the ball, when you're defending or when you're attacking. Where should you be on the pitch, and what should I be doing, and how can I impact the game? And I think by educating players in that and letting them make the decisions, it speeds that up, and it really educates the players. The example I always give is you see, we've all coached them being on the sideline, and there's a centre back, and he comes to you on the sideline and he'll say, "My man's gone down the field. Will I follow him?" And at this stage, our management team, they can see the hair standing on the back of my neck, and I'll pull the player off and I'll say, "Oh, why are you asking me?" He said, "Well, he's gone down the field. Will I follow him?" And I said, well, is he like the Gooch? Is he getting on the ball and spraying it in over your head? Or is he like Darren O'Sullivan and getting it and running past you? Or is he like Donncha Walsh and getting loads of breaks and causing chaos? Or is he gone down the field and doing nothing? And generally he'll say, "Well, I don't know." And I say, what do you think you should do? Well, will I leave it for a few balls and see what he's doing? And I said, there you go. Figure it out yourself. So one of the key things with a games-based approach is making decisions and empowering the players. Sometimes you can overcoach and make him make his own decision. Another benefit is you can create rules to promote certain skills or outcomes. So, for example, if you said we're just going to be a hand passing team, you can introduce a rule that there's no kicking of the ball. You'd get thrown over Blennerville Bridge in Kerry if you tried to do that. But you can create a rule within a game to give you the outcome you want. The big one as well is it creates leadership skills within the group. So as a manager, you're stood on the sideline. Even the Muir Foreigners got the bullet last weekend. So once the ball is thrown up, much and all as we think we're great as coaches, there's nothing you can do once the ball is thrown up. A few tactical switches and you'll get a pat in the back, and you're a genius if they work, and if they don't, you'll get hammered. But the bottom line is, really, it's about the players making decisions. And if you've got 5, 6, 7 players on the team who understand your game plan and what it's all about, and they can filter it out through the team. And often, as a coach, you won't get through to every player, but you could have a fullback who can explain what it's about, or talk your cornerback through the game. So those type of things, those skills that you can nurture, are fantastic. Obviously, a games-based approach is a lot more realistic than doing drills. It's a match scenario. And the final point, I think it can be a great point for pressure moments. So you can create scenarios where a point down, it's the last minute of the game, or we're a point up and it's the last minute of the game, or we've 2 minutes left. Can you defend the lead? Can you defend it out? And you can roar and shout and try and get the jizz up so that fellas are under pressure and they're having to think under pressure. So, you know, games-based approach can really help with that. And the final point there on the right, you know, going back to the St. Pat's under nines, you know, the best thing, you know, I found with coaching the young lads is you're doing a good job when the parents are coming up to you saying, Jesus, he had the gear on at 8 o'clock this morning. He was bursting for road. He loves coming down to the field. And, you know, that's ultimately your job as a coach. And the first thing, the under nines, when you get them in a circle and say, what do you want to do today? Can we play a match? So players of all age groups love playing matches. So, you know, they're getting a lot more enjoyment out of the whole thing through games-based approach. So when and how do you use a games-based approach? So this is my own kind of thing that I use. So in my head, you have a close skill. So close skills, if we took, let's say, catching a ball, the skill is throwing the ball up and catching it over your head. The drill would be running from cone A, catching a ball, throwing it to another fella, cone B, and working along that way. A condition game then could be a 10-a-side game where across the pitch, where the only way you can get a score is if you catch the ball over your head. And then you're trying to see, can you bring those skills into a full game scenario? Can you see it coming into play in a full game? And I think you have to look at the time you're spending in each of those areas: skill, drill, condition game, and full game. We're lucky enough with the minors because club coaches and development squads and divisional teams and schools have done such a good job. We're spending 80% of our training sessions are either in condition games and full games, because the lads all have a good skill. They can kick off both feet. Their close skills are good. And we only use drills really as a reference point. If there's something we're not happy with, we'll dip back into a drill for 10 minutes to refine it and bring it back up to a condition game then again. But again, going back to my under nines, you'll spend maybe 15 minutes doing the skills, overhead catch. You'll try and put it into a drill and then into a condition game. So just really look at the time you're spending in each. I don't play golf, but for me to go straight onto a golf club with a golf course with a set of clubs would be a waste of time. I'd need to be spending a lot of time at the skill stage, learning how to strike the ball, learning, you know, different drills and all that before I go near it. So the same applies to football, incorporating games as you're going along, obviously. So I suppose what I wanted to do then was give a few examples using a bit of video here. Now I've video clips that we use ourselves, and then I have the tactics board thing built into the presentation. So what I do is I'll show you video clips in practice, and then I'll bring it back to the tactics board where you can see it a bit more. So what I wanted to do, I suppose there's general and there's specific principles, if you like. And I think the key thing as a coach is what are you about? What's your philosophy? Are you a kicking team? Are you a running team? What way do you want to play the game? And what I've tried to pick out here, I think, is just 4 principles that it doesn't really matter what way you want to play the game. There's a core set of principles and good habits that if you can get into your team, that it'll stand them in good stead, you know. So go back to my analogy, if you were a hand passing team, you'd then come up with more layers or more games that would promote that. So the first one, you know, I'm going to spend a bit of time on the first one because there's a lot of coaching points in the clip I'm about to show you. Weak side defending. Then we'll just look at the idea of turnovers and getting energy off them, that when you get a turnover, when the team kicks the ball to you, that it's a great opportunity to attack. Not crowding out the forward line is obviously, nobody will disagree with that. And then getting your full back line to start attacks the way the modern game has gone, and teams are very defensive. You can get great energy out of attacking off the full back line. So, Eamon, you might jump in here if this doesn't play right. You know, it should. Just if it doesn't. So here's a clip of it's just a clip I picked at random because I had the game done of our Munster final minor. So the idea of weak side defending is just a principle. I think you see this a lot, especially with soccer players, this idea of tucking in and giving a bit of protection. Any lad we had in development squads who played soccer, this came very, very naturally to them. So I suppose the principle is whatever side the ball is on, that's the strong side. So all here, this is the strong side because the ball is here. So this is your strong side. The ball is coming here. All the Kerry defenders here have to be engaged because the ball is coming this way. But I suppose what I want you to look at is at the far side of the pitch, you have the weak side. So that's the weak side. So these guys now, they're out of the play. If the play comes back over here, they'll have a chance to re-engage. So there's an opportunity now for them, this wing back here to give a little bit of protection and this wing forward to pick up his man. Okay? And it's just a general principle that, you know, I'll show you how you can incorporate it. But if you let it play out and just watch these two players, so this is the strong side here. If you watch the players on the far side, you can see now just kind of subtly, this fella has dropped in to give a bit of protection and that fella's picked up his man. And to the uneducated eye, you could say Kerry are playing with a sweeper, but it's not a sweeper. It's just we have an opportunity to give a small bit of protection. So I'll let it play on and I'll just flash a couple of points. As I said, I'll spend a small bit of time on this one. So now we've turned over the ball, but there's a reason why we've turned over the ball, which I'll show you here. So we let it play on. So as you can see, this guy's engaged here now. He's back, giving it a bit of protection. But there's a couple of things I want you to watch, and this is just kind of good decision making, nothing to do with me and the minors. This is you know, drilled into them from underage and schools football and development squads and clubs. So you'll see him. He puts his hands up in the air naturally, because he wants to put off the kicker. So he's saying, don't kick it in, I have my hands in the air. As the play develops and moves up the field towards the Kerry goals, you'll see him drop back a few yards. And this is just all him making, his head is like a computer and he's making decisions on where he needs to be and what he needs to do. So you'll see him now, you'll see him, I'll slow it down, his hands have gone up in the air. You'll also see our full back here. He's decided now that for a kick to come in, the kick is far too long to go over his head. So he said, I'll take a chance and play my man from the front, because he's just made a decision that the ball won't go over my head from there. It's the middle of the field. So if he does kick it in, I'm going to be out in front. So again, we'll watch our guy on the 45. And as the play moves forward, he starts to drop off a bit more. He says, I'll give him a bit more protection. Our full back starts to get a bit tighter because the ball is getting closer. And there's just one other thing I want to show you here. You'll see our wing back here, when the play starts to progress out the other side, you'll see the wing back on the strong side now kind of says, he now says, I can drop off a bit here because the ball's moving the other way. So he starts giving a little bit of protection because the play, he's not engaged in the play. So all these, the point I'm making with these are all tons and tons of instant decisions that are made in a split second that are just picked up through games-based coaching. You know, every fella's making loads of decisions here through games-based coaching. And there's just one or two final decisions here. Then we break out a defence, which is fine. I've it slowed down a bit there. I'll speed it up. And we get to the stage where we're going nowhere really, and the ball comes into traffic. And we've all been at the stage as coaches, and we're all saying this, you know, there's a pile of bodies there, move it out of contact. You'll hear that a lot, move it out of contact. So again, it's like Coach Seamus Moynihan about Tyrone in 2003. It's like Times Square there. If we try and come through that, we're going to be in trouble. So again, good decisions. Let's get it away from all these bodies. Let's get it out the other side of the pitch. There's loads of space, and let's build our attack from there. And just there's one final one. If you watch this player here, once this fella starts coming towards him, once he starts coming towards him there, you'll see him pull away so that he's an option for the pass. Why is he doing that? It's instinctive. It's just he wants to be an option, but it's all good decisions that are made because of games-based coaching or things they've picked up over the years. And it would have been just that the ball came off his boot slightly. So what I'd like to do now, run it through from the start, and you'll see the whole thing in action. You'll see the wing back dropping off. You'll see the half back line on this side are engaged. The wing forward on the far side is starting to tuck in and give him a bit of protection. We're tackling hard in the middle of the field. Our wing back that's tucked in has the hands up. The full back is playing out in front. We start to engage, so we all tighten up a bit. Ball moves across, so our strong side wing back is able to tuck in a little bit. And now we're just putting mad pressure, great work rate on the ball here. You'll even see small things when the centre back picks it up here. He solos it with his left leg first, and then with his right leg. He gives a pass, maybe not much else on for him. We're starting to run into a bit of traffic here now. Probably should have came out around the other side there. We run into a bit of traffic. Now we say, let's get the ball away from all these bodies. Let's move it out into open space. 2 nice one bounce kicks. And now we're into space. Let's stretch the play. This guy comes out to the sideline to stretch it. Full forward goes to the back post. And just the execution is slightly off. Okay, so all I'm saying is these are subtle little things that are taught through games. How would you coach that? So the example I'm going to give in a lot of these videos is 8-a-side games. So here's an 8-a-side pitch. The only condition we've put on this is every time the ball goes wide, it doesn't start with a kick out for the goalie. It starts with a sideline for the defensive team on the 14-yard line. Okay, so by doing that, by starting on the sideline down here, it automatically, I'll just flick onto that so you can see it better. It automatically will give you a weak side. Okay, so if we run that, and it'll play, it just takes a few seconds to kick in. So now we start moving, the sideline is about to be taken. Now the sideline is taken. We start to engage. Now, once the ball goes over this side of the pitch, we very obviously now, down here, our 10 and our 13 are on a weak side, okay? And that becomes a weak side defending. We can do a bit of weak side defending. Then you see the 10 will slot in. 13 slots in to cover his man. We turn over the ball and then we'll break hard and come out and try and get a score off it. So the condition game here really, 8-a-side game, and then just using the pitch, and the condition you put in the game is start with a sideline. And one of the things I'll touch on a lot is the use of your coaches. So rather than stopping it every time something goes wrong, if you had a coach on this sideline and a coach on this sideline, you can talk the players through the game. You know, you can talk them through it. So you could say at this point here, if you had a coach here and he's saying, a coach on this sideline, he's setting number 10, Tommy, you can tuck in, number 13, you can drop off. And he's talking him through it at the start until it becomes naturally. And you're hoping you get to the stage where your number 8 will start pulling in 10. Okay, so as I said, it's just really a general principle and how you go about coaching it. It's not rocket science. The next one I want to work on is turnovers. So I feel in the modern game, turnovers give you great energy. I'll just talk about this for a sec. There's great energy to be got off turnovers, because when you turn over the ball, defenses aren't set, like we talked about. The weak side defender isn't in place. Teams aren't set. If you turn over the ball and if you've an intent to go hard on a turnover, if that's a rule you have, it's a great thing. You can get real joy out of it. So in this scenario, if you were to look at this clip and if you said we had instructed the players, if you get a turnover, the rules are, if this was a condition game, break fast and don't go backwards. So too often you see a player, you know, running up the field and then stopping and going backwards. And all that's doing really is giving defenses time to get set. So if you said, when we get a turnover, we're going to go mad. We're going to go really, really fast. So we get the turnover and there's an intent there to go. And we're not allowed to go backwards. We have to keep going forwards. We have to keep trying to go forwards. And we're committed to it. You know, we're committed to it. How we didn't get a penalty for that, I still haven't figured out. But so running it through again. Okay, there's our turnover. And what I want to focus on now really is just the intent of these two. Their immediate reaction, you can see it, is let's go. Let's go. And you're taking defenders out of the play. If this guy goes backwards now, if he'd taken an notion and said, I'm going to slow it down and I'm going to come around here, the whole thing is dead. So there has to be an intent to keep going. This fella's continued his run. because he understands what we're trying to do, and he thinks, geez, there's a good chance I'll actually get the ball. Because you find a lot of times players won't run if they think, we've all played with players that don't leave the ball off and slow it down. But if there's an intent there to keep going, I think it's a great way. And even at a young age, I think it's something you could instill in players, you know, at a young age. If we can turn it over, let's go. How would you coach that? This is a simple game that can be used for an awful lot of scenarios. The arc, so you again, an 8-a-side game, set up an arc of cones across the pitch, and you must score from within the arc, and you're kind of asking teams to defend the arc more so than normal, exaggerate it and defend the arc, with the rule being, if you turn over the ball, let's really go for it. You know, you will need people minding the house, obviously, and you'll need communication. Your goalie and your number 2 and 3, they'll be saying, you know, Tommy, hold back, Johnny, go, or whatever. So it increases communication if you're committing to turnovers. So I'll just run this through and let it play for you. It takes a while to kick in. Eamon, just checking you're hearing me okay there, yeah? Or Tommy?
Yeah, perfect, James. Perfect, drive on.
Yeah, sorry, James.
Yeah, okay. So you can see now Reds are trying to get it into the arc to score. The Greens are defending their arc, okay? And you'd be hoping here there'd be good communication between the Greens. I've got this fella, I've got that fella. And eventually we turn it over. Now we're committed to break. Let's break. Let's go hard. Let's try and the red team are in disarray. Let's go for it. Let's try and see if we can get a score. Okay. And again, the key point you'd kind of make on this is well, I'll let it run through again, yeah. So you're committed to attack the turnover. Once you get a turnover, you're committed to attacking it. Okay, so you give them 5 or 10 seconds then to reset again. Everyone picks up their man. Reds come out with the ball. You could introduce a bit of your weak side defending here as well. You know, they're trying to get in. At some stage then they're getting close to the arc. Greens will have to say, geez, we better protect this arc a small bit here. So you're trying to protect the scoring zone where 80-something% of scores come from. And we're well set. You're hoping they're talking all the time now. And I just want to freeze it here because 13 now, who would be your corner forward. The other thing you can instill here in these guys is normally he'd think he's out of the play. You know, sometimes you see the play and it's 40 yards ahead of you and you say, Jesus, I'll never get on the end of that. But a lot of these games you can say, Jesus, look, Tommy, you got the ball in our own 14 there and we broke hard at pace and you did a 60-yard run up the pitch and you probably wouldn't do it normally. But if you know the ball will come to you and you'll get it, you end up putting the ball in the net. So you can kind of encourage fellas then maybe to work a bit harder than they used to or they want to. So I just run that bit of it again. So, you know, a lot of times players, they just think, I'm out of the play here. I can't impact it. And it's amazing how fast players can make up 30 or 40 yards on a pitch. You know, so again, you know, you're honing all these decision-making skills. Go back to the last clip. Where do I need to be? Where do I need to stand on the pitch without the ball? We're committed to turning it over and let's attack now. And Jesus, I can get up the pitch there 30, 40 yards and I can get in the end of something. And if you know a fella's going to pass the ball, I think fellas are more inclined to make the run. The point I was about to make there, we all played with fellas and as soon as the ball stuck to them, got to them, it stood dead and they weren't going to pass it. But I think if you can instill that culture in the team that we always give the pass. So I just have one more clip on that again. It's the same kind of principle. It's the last one I'll show on this. So again, just from a kick out is the same thing. If you can turn over the ball, all you're looking at is the intent. We're going. We're not going backwards. We're committed to attacking. Let's get the ball in. You know, it's just a philosophy, really. If that's the way, I think it's a really good way of playing the game. So just pop back there a sec now. So after that, so we've covered off weak side defending, turnovers. Okay, don't crowd it out. I think that's one that can be done for kids at a really, really young age. So this idea of not crowding out your forward line. Sorry, I'll just pause that a sec.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, we're breaking fast on the play.
Phillips.
I let it run through.
You didn't get them from the...
No.
And we score a goal, right? But I suppose, again, if I take that back, the key point I want to make here is underage players and adult players have an awful tendency when they get to this stage here of everyone wants to get into the scoring zone. They all want to get in there, crowded out, and it prevents you from getting the kick in, because suddenly all your midfielders and your half forward line, especially with kids, have burst ahead. They're inside in the full forward line with their hand up in the air screaming for the ball. So if you had a principle, which I think every team should have, don't go in until the ball goes in, in open play, right? If teams have a mass defence, it's a separate thing. But in open play, don't go in until the ball's gone in already. It's a very solid piece of advice. So what I want you to do now is you'll see the guy who ends up scoring the goal, which is this fella here. If you see him, he'll go nearly as far as the 45, and then he'll actually stop, because you can see him mentally thinking, Jesus, I'm not meant to go in here for a while. So if you watch him now as opposed to watching the ball, you'll see him carry his run, and then he'll get to the stage. He actually stops. He waits till the ball goes in. Now he times his run, and now he's in, right? Whereas I think if he had continued his run from this point and gone way ahead inside, he'd have blocked up the whole thing, blocked up the good space, as we call it, and he'd have caused a lot of problems. So by actually checking his run there, he allows himself the time to come with a late hard run. I was saying you can't really be too late. You can definitely be too early, but it's hard to be too late. So again, how would you incorporate that into a game? So a very simple way of incorporating that would be, again, go back to our 8-a-side, and we line up 2 sets of cones, 2 sets of blue cones here, you can see, across the pitch, and we've 2 players inside at either side, and we've 4 players in the middle. And the only stipulation you'll put in it is you can't go into the attacking zone until the ball has been kicked in already. So wait for the ball to go in. It's just an 8-a-side game, 2 lines of blue cones. Don't go inside the cones until the ball has gone into the inside men already. Sorry. We let this play through. So the ball's coming out. Now the ball goes in. Now we time our run, and we get a score. And that's very easy to coach. And if you can get the players coaching it for you, hold Tommy, you're gone too early, hold it. If you can get that kind of chemistry going with them. So going the other way then. Don't go in, wait for the ball to go in. Now go in and go hard. Okay? And if you can get small wins around the wheels. So going back to my point then of, focusing on the positives rather than stopping it every time someone goes wrong. Focus, well done, that's brilliant, that's exactly what you want, stop it. Do you see what you did there? You were going to go in, you didn't go in, you timed your run perfectly, and you're just building up players' confidence and belief, giving you a bit of credibility in what you're doing with them as much as anything. I just have one more kind of example of something. So the last thing I want to focus on is I think with the way football is being played now, defences are so good that you really need your full back line to give you an option coming out of defence. A lot of time I played in the full back line myself. You'd win the ball, you'd hand pass it off, you'd pat yourself in the back, and you'd get tight to your man and say, job done. I think that day is gone in football. I think it's all about now creating overlaps from as deep down the pitch as you can, getting as much width on the pitch. And if you can get overlaps, it becomes like a game of drafts where you're just popping the balls in 1-2s and getting up the pitch really hard and really fast. So I just have 2 clips on that. I'm not doing a game on that. So again, if you watch this, I suppose what I want you to focus on in this clip, I'll let it run first and then we'll talk it through. It's only 20 seconds. So I'll just let this play out first. Okay. So when we win a free that we actually score. What I'd like you to focus on with this now is we've 2 players here. So we've our fullback here who actually wins the ball and then we've our cornerback. And I'd like you to just track the two of them. So once they win the ball, their intent is not to stop and pass it off to the half-back line to kick it up the field. Their intent is, let's go. Let's build an attack from the full-back line. And if you can kind of keep an eye on the two of them. Okay. Watch this fellow when he gets the hand pass. He's coming again. But it's just the intent. And I suppose by moving the ball really fast at pace, I just want to take it back here. You'll actually see how many opposition defenders you take out of the play by coming out hard and fast from your own full back line. You can really take a lot of defenders. There's probably 6, 7, 8, 9. There's probably 10 of them behind the ball now at this stage, and we win a free which we kick. And just the last clip on that is something kind of similar. So again, I suppose the natural tendency here is to try and kick the ball, but our player, he's head up, he's a good decision maker. There's no kick on. So he's in a bit of trouble now. He's in a bit of trouble. Two players I want you to watch in this clip is this guy again and this guy. So their intent to do something. They want to play football. They want to come out. And it's just the intent to come out with the ball. And suddenly from a situation where you're under a bit of trouble, that you've burst out. And again, because there's an intent, I suppose, to come out and attack, we actually get a score off it. Whereas I think a lot of time in this situation, this is the start of it, you'll see this ball being played over and back across the pitch, going nowhere, not doing anything, maybe going back to the goalkeeper. So, but I think football's changed now, and it really is about coming out hard and fast. And again, it's this idea of fellas know they'll get the ball if they run hard for it. Okay, so I haven't done a game for that, but look, it'd be very easy if you sit down with a pen and paper for 5 minutes and come up with a conditioned game that would encourage that type of thing. So that's me on the conditioned games. Tips on how you can use games-based approach for maximum effect. One of the key things I think is develop your own language. So if you go back to what we were talking about with the weak side defending, it could be Shawnee, tuck in, drop back, get tight. You can have your little words that you use. So if you have your 5 or 6 words that your team uses all the time and everyone understands it, spread your vision through the group. Coaches first. Get your coaches. Your coaches have to be on the same page as you. As I said, the way I personally like the coaches, have the coaches on the pitch. There could be 3 coaches on the pitch, and rather than stopping the game, if a forward shoots from the corner flag, generally we're at the stage now where instead of stopping the game and balling him out of it or talking to him, we'll go up the far side of the field and we'll start with a kick out from the other goals. So 90% of the players turn their attention up to the other goalie kicking out the ball and getting set for the kick out, and your coach is going over and say, Jesus, Shawnee, recycle that around, or had you a better option, but don't really shoot from the corner flag. And the game can go on. So if your coaches are on the same page as you, it really helps. Identify your generals. It's probably not a great word, but I suppose the key thing is the players on the team who understand the game plan and can they infiltrate it to the other players. You mightn't be able to get through to your cornerback or your corner forward, but if your full forward or understands what you're about, sometimes the peer thing can kick in and they can talk the other fella through the game, drop off, tuck in, push on, Jesus, you went in too early there, hold your run, all those type of things. And I think in every great team there's always been 4 or 5 players. Eamon Fitzmaurice there when he was playing with the seniors, he just always looked like a fella at centre back, was in complete understanding of the game plan of whatever team he played in was trying to do. There's loads of players. Paul Murphy looks like to me a great player that understands everything and can spread the word around the team. As your team improves, coach through the games like I've just said. Have a coach in each half. Try not to be stopping it as much. Try and let the game flow as much as you can. Now you will at the start. You'll be stopping it and correcting it, and the problem with that is lads get bored. If you're stopping the play every time somebody goes wrong, they switch off. They start thinking about what's on TV or what's for lunch. So if you try to keep the game flowing and only stop it when you really need to. Look for the positives, lose the negativity. Great job. Focus on something that's done right rather than done wrong. This, I think, is the last slide. I have 2 other clips I want to show you, and then I'm done. Spread your vision. Start small. Get your key stakeholders on board. So whatever your way of playing the game or whatever you're about as a coach, try and get your coaches on the journey with you. You know, take on board whatever they're saying. They'll all add different pieces of value, and try and come up with an agreed way of how you're going to coach and what you're about. And as I said, what I've shown there is, I would call it very general stuff. You know, you can get into specifics then, but try and do as much of it through games, scenarios. Eamon Dunphy calls it street football. It's the closest we get in GAA to street football, where fellas are learning without knowing it. Bring the future to life. Tell them, geez, lads, if we keep going with this, paint them a picture of where you want to go. Be prepared. Have all your games. If your game doesn't work, sit down and figure out why, what you need to tweak. Prepare properly for it. Have the cones laid out. Have everything set up so that it has the best chance of working. How you say things is really important. You know, I think there's times when you have, you know, the carrot and the stick. There's a time for both. But I think, you know, at times we've gone fairly hard on fellas, but you'd always try and sort it out with them after and say, you know, I'm doing this for the team and for you, and be very understanding of how you're saying things. The last point, I suppose, is to build credibility with small wins. I'll show you a clip. I wasn't going to show this, but I'll just show you a clip on what I mean by that. Let me see here now. Yeah. So it's if you have something that works. This clip, as I say to the lads, this is the TG GAA camera. So this is the one mom and dad sees, and it looks all very straightforward and very, very, very normal. But you know, we're lucky with different cameras. But if I was to show you another angle on this now, and if I ask you to keep an eye on the 2 inside forwards, right, and watch how this guy managed to get a bit of space. Little bump there, you see. So it's just a little shield to give him the yard of space so he can get away. Okay, probably a bit too, I don't know, it could be pulled as a free. There you go. So you can see it here now. It's just a bit of unselfishness to create space for another fella that nobody else will see. But if you can see things like that as a coach in your condition games, you have to praise this fella. You know, he's the guy that needs to, he's the guy that'll get the praise. The papers will write about the guy who had the goal scoring chance, but it all came from just a little block that created a bit of space. The last thing then is you know, you can get credibility in other ways then. So, you know, something that Mark Fitzgerald from Strand Road actually brought this to our setup this year. He identified all top intercounty teams now are kicking 3 and 4 points a game consistently from loop plays. Is a forward will literally run at it, engage the defender, and another forward will loop around and kick the score. And in this situation, it didn't come off. And you know, one of the things we worked on was he never really engaged the defender. He kind of just passed it off a bit too early and didn't give the forward the bit of separation he needed to get the score. So when we went back and we worked on it a few weeks later, you'll see here a very similar situation. And the point comes off it. And I think the key difference here is, if I slow this down, you'll see you'll see how he engages the defender this time, a little bump just to create the yard of space to get the point off. And I think, okay, we're lucky in that we've the video work and we can do these things, but all that can be done through condition games as well. You know, it's just as effective to do these things coaching through condition games. So I think that's me pretty much done there, Tommy. I'm, you know, I think where are we at? We're just over 40 minutes. So if there's any questions now, I'll throw them open.
Excellent stuff, James. I suppose I really enjoyed that, and well done. I really liked the going forward ball condition game. You know, it's going hard and going for the team. I suppose also the use of your tactical pad, you know, I'd find that very beneficial, really. And I'm sure something that you can show guys before you go out on the training field, like what you want to do and why we're working on it. Like, so I found that very beneficial. We had a few questions, I suppose, James, that came in before tonight, I suppose, that were emailed into us. So I'll fire away with the questions, I suppose. Question number one: How do you use a game-based approach with players of mixed ability in an underage club squad? Some players that are very strong and some players that are very weak.
Yeah, that's very good one. You know what? It's something I struggled with myself last year, and funny enough, doing a bit of thinking on it. One of the things, I'll actually share my screen again, Tommy. One of the things I was looking at with that was, this is just, sorry, no. I like the idea of, Jack O'Connor was a massive man for no man's land. I remember going over to Kerry senior training for years, and I was coming home depressed because all they were playing was no man's land. And Jack's the best coach I've ever seen. But I wasn't good enough at the time to understand the subtleties of the things he was coaching, but they just seemed he was way ahead of his time with condition games and the way he used them, but he was getting specific things off it. But one way I'm going to use this year with my young lads is use no man's land. And, you can have, in my under eights, we'd 5 or 6 exceptional lads, and then we'd mixed ability, and we'd a few lads that were weaker. And one of the ideas is you could put all the weaker lads, instead of separating them. So normally you'd mix the teams, and what happened would be the 3 or 4 best guys would dominate the whole game. And then if you put the weaker lads together, you'd feel bad and you felt they weren't improving. So I think this idea of setting up a no man's land, and on the left side, you might have weaker lads matched up with each other. And on the other side, then you have the stronger lads matched up with each other. So they're all playing in the same game, but they're all matched up with fellas of their own ability. So the stronger lads here can be hopping off each other and scoring. And these fellas then are getting a couple of more seconds maybe on the ball, and they're developing, but they're all playing the same game. And then they must kick the ball to their teammate. They're not allowed into no man's land. It's a very simple game, but I think for young kids of mixed ability, it's a great one. And then you just flip it over. So if X's score into this goal here, then X's get the ball back again, and they're playing it up to the forwards on the opposite team here. So ideas like that, it's about being creative. I actually struggle with mixing kids. Do you play weaker kids together, or do you mix them? So I think ideas like this, where they're all playing in the same game, but you kind of have a no man's land to filter it. Ideas like that are very useful.
Perfect, James. I suppose second one then, what age would you introduce the games-based approach to club players, I suppose?
Yeah, it depends. I think some of those things could be embedded in at a reasonably young age. Really does depend on the age. I certainly think under 13s you could be dropping in bits of that. Definitely, 15s you're doing it. But even at younger age groups, the idea of, Jesus, if they kick the ball away to us, let's try and go really fast. Something simple like that at younger age group. Let's go really fast if they kick the ball away to us. If the ball's on the other side of the field, could you drop off a small bit there and try and help us a small bit? Ideas like that you can start encouraging as soon as you think they're ready. And you'll find in any age group, there's 5 or 6 lads will soak it up, go back to the point, then get them to help you implement it with the other lads.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose the third question then, and I think what do you mean by overcoaching?
Overcoaching, to me, I suppose I gave an example of it there, is the fella, the centre back coming over. Will I follow him, and the coach scratching his chin and pretending he knows all the answers? So that type of thing, I think telling the players to figure it out themselves. I think the realisation that when the game is in the melting pot, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And if you accept that early in the year and embrace it and try and empower the players, my Quirk is very big on player autonomy, and I'd be of the same view, that letting them make the decisions during the game and not being too formulaic. You see a lot of teams at intercounty level, they get very structured and big defensive systems, and ultimately when you get to Croke Park at intercounty level, all that goes out the window. The pitch is too big, the ground is too good. You'll get away with things at provincial level or in small grounds, but when you hit the big time in Croke Park, you need to be able to make great decisions and play great football. And I think, the thing with the Kerrys and the Dublins is people are looking for some kind of secret sauce in coaching or managing, and really it's just great players with a great skill set making great decisions, mostly without the ball. So I think the more we can do, go back to the first clip, allowing players just to build their own idea of where they need to be in the pitch, I think that's huge for me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just another question there, James, that came in through the chat there from Patrick in the chat. The duration of your condition games, are these based through discussion with the SNC, or would you expand the duration depending on how it's shaping up in real time?
Yeah, it depends on the intensity of them, Tommy. So like, if we were doing if the main aim was fitness with a bit of skills thrown in, if we were doing, let's say, a 4-a-side game on a 40x60 pitch, you'd blast out maybe 2-minute blast, flat to the mat with a minute or two recovery, and you go again. If you're doing kind of like the ones I was showing you, 8-a-side games where you're coaching through them, you could easily go for 5-6 minutes, have a drink of water, have a chat, 4 or 5 minutes, have a chat, go back into it, another drink of water, another chat. If you've good coaches, send team A with coach A and team B with coach B to have a quick chat about what they could do better, and back into it again, 4 or 5 minutes. And then there's nothing wrong with bouncing from game to game then as well, you know.
Absolutely. And just Patrick, in the second question, have you looked at involving the goalkeeper as an option in building up the attacking first phase, similar to how soccer clubs have recently within their games?
Yeah, I think the kick out is obviously a huge part of any team now in terms of it's so important in terms of starting attacks. I think at underage anyway, I'm opposed to it. I think it's put too much pressure on a goalie if you're asking him to come out the field and, you know, set up attacks at inter-county level. I think it's a super thing to do at club level. Just weighing up the character that's involved. If he does something wrong with the ball, will he be able to bounce back from it? All those type of things. But all these things to get fellas involved making decisions, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, perfect. I suppose, James, we're going to leave it at that. I suppose I'm just going to do probably a few thank yous now. I suppose I suppose on behalf of Kerry Coaching and Games, I'd like to thank James for presenting to us tonight. It was super. Really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that everyone who tuned in, logged in, got something out of it. You know, and that you can incorporate that into your own sessions. You know, and when you're planning for your own sessions in hopefully in the weeks ahead when we're back in the field. I suppose I'd like to wish James and his squad of players all the best in the upcoming All-Ireland semi-final, and also wish you all the best with this year's group when this year's campaign kicks off. I suppose on behalf of Kerry Coaching Games, I suppose we'd like to thank everyone who logged in tonight. You know, we'd think over 120 logged in tonight. It was great numbers, and I hope you got something out of it. We have recorded it, so we'll hopefully get that out on our YouTube channel as well, you know, later on. So we'll be back again in 3 weeks' time, and all the relevant information will be sent to the clubs for our next webinar. So Gurry Mil Mahaga for everyone who tuned in tonight. Okay, thanks, James.
Thanks, Tommy.
No problem, God.